Good evening. I'm calling to order the the February 21, 2019 meeting of the City of Boulder Planning Board. We have a quorum. Everybody's here. The first item on our agenda is approval of minutes. We have a set of minutes from the January 17th, 2019 meeting that we've all had a chance to review. Does anyone want to make any comments or edits or offer a motion?
Well, I'll make a comment. Just that was a particularly difficult discussion to synthesize around Alpine balsam, and I wanted to give credit where it's due. I thought the job that you did, Cindy, was extraordinary on these minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Harmon.
With that in mind, I'd like to move to approve them.
I'll second.
Okay, great.
Oh, could I just comment? I wasn't in the meeting, but I read the minutes, so I will go ahead and vote for them.
Okay. So we have a motion by Gerstle, seconded by Zuckerman, to approve the minutes of the January 17th, 2019 hearing. I'll call a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. So the next item on our agenda is public participation for items that we don't have a public hearing about. Tonight we have one public hearing, and it's about the Knollwood annexation. If anyone would like to speak to any item other than the Knollwood annexation, please sign up with Cindy or come up. It looks like we don't have anybody. Okay, great, thanks. And we'll move to the next one. Next item, which is discussion of dispositions, planning board call-ups and continuations. We have two call-up items tonight. One is a use review at the Pollard site parking lot to use the northern portion of the former auto dealership as an automobile parking lot prior to redevelopment of the property. And then we also have a call-up item, which is a use review for a restaurant use with approximately 569 square foot tenant space at 2359 Arapahoe. So do we have any interest in asking questions of the applicant or staff about either of these items? Armin.
So I'm just going to disclose that I am the attorney for the landowner at 2359 Arapahoe Avenue, and I'm going to sit here for now, but if there's any discussion about calling that up, I'll take my leave and go next door.
Okay, so we need to warn Harmon if we're going to say anything about this item.
Right.
Anybody going to have any comments or anything? John?
I just had a question on the Pollard parking lot matter.
So we'll bring Shannon Muller up to talk about that one.
Beg pardon? Oh.
Hi, I'm Shannon Muller. I can answer.
So I just wanted to make sure that I understood that this is a temporary arrangement and will have no bearing on the future ultimate use of that land.
That's correct. Yeah, it's just intended to be a temporary use of the site. The proposals and plans are being reviewed right now for the eventual future redevelopment of the site. So this will just be there in the interim.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else? All right, then, does anybody have any interest in calling either of these up? All right, then we will move to our public hearing item, which is a public hearing and planning board recommendation on the proposed annexation of an area generally including the Knollwood subdivision, Knollwood subdivision first edition, Knollwood subdivision second edition, 2285 Knollwood Drive and 150 Green Rock Drive, with an initial zoning of residential estate, RE. The annexation petition seeks annexation pursuant to election procedures. And I will turn it over to staff for their presentation.
Great, thanks Liz, and good evening board members.
Good evening.
Kathleen King, who's in our comprehensive planning division, is the case manager for this application and will present this item.
Great.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. we will get started. So there's a couple of pieces to the presentation and the work tonight. First, we're going to start with a staff presentation on the petition as well as the annexation by election process. Then we'll have a 10-minute presentation from the applicant, and following that, we'll open it up for the public hearing, discussion, and recommendations to council. So the staff presentation tonight is going to spend a little time talking about the annexation by election process, since this is a bit different from recent annexations. We'll review some of the existing conditions of the neighborhood, talk about the key terms and conditions of this annexation, review the analysis of compliance with state statutes and the BVCP, and I'll present the staff recommendation for motion. So the key issues for tonight's meeting are, is the proposed annexation consistent with state statutes? Is the proposed annexation consistent with the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan? And is the zoning of residential estate appropriate for the properties in the annexation area? So if you aren't familiar with this neighborhood, the Knollwood annexation area is on the western edge of the city, where Mapleton Avenue turns into Sunshine Canyon Drive. The area includes around 28 acres and 48 properties. 47 of those properties are located in the Knollwood Metropolitan District, which is a special district currently in unincorporated Boulder County. And one property, 150 Green Rock Drive, which is not in the district and is currently served by city water. The applicant's goal for pursuing annexation is to connect the neighborhood to city water. So we received this application in June of last year and have been working with the applicants, the district, and across the city departments to negotiate the terms of a potential annexation. The petition submitted is for an annexation by election, and I understand that process for annexation by election hasn't been conducted in the city since the 1970s. So there's a couple extra steps involved that we wanted to just go over and review with you. There are two major phases of this process. The first phase confirms that the applicant has submitted all the required materials and sets the terms and conditions of the annexation. First, City Council reviews the petition for substantial compliance with state law, and this took place by resolution on February 5th of this year. At tonight's public hearing, Planning Board will make a recommendation to Council on the annexation and initial zoning of the area. And then on March 19th, at a second public hearing, Council will review your recommendation, the annexation and zoning, and make findings on whether the proposed annexation is in compliance with state law and determine the terms, conditions, and initial zoning of the area. So that first phase allows the city and applicants to move forward with an election. In sort of this phase two or second phase, Council will order that an election will be called and will nominate an election commissioner. Then there will be an election where both registered electors in the area and landowners of properties in the area will vote on the annexation. A majority is needed for the election to pass, and if the outcome is positive, the area is considered eligible for annexation. And then finally, Council may annex the area by ordinance. So there's a couple more steps than usual, and I think if you have questions about that process, we can kind of talk through some more of that at the end. But I'm going to move on to talk about some of the existing conditions. So as I mentioned previously, the annexation area is located in Boulder County. Prior to the BVCP's recent update, the neighborhood was located above the blue line and in Area 3. But during that update process, the city clarified the location of the blue line and revised the planning areas map. And today the neighborhood is located below the blue line and in Area 2, making it eligible for annexation. The BVCP land use map designates this area as very low density residential, which is characterized by larger lots and more rural characteristics. Most areas surrounding the neighborhood to the east and south are also residential, and then to the west is open space. The area currently has county zoning of suburban residential, which is low density suburban residential, and surrounded by RL1 zone of Mapleton Hill, RM2 residential medium, and RMX, which is residential mixed of West Pearl, and then public zoning for the open space lands. Staff took a look at a couple potential zoning options for this area and found that initial zoning of residential estate would be most appropriate for the neighborhood and allow the most number of properties to be in compliance with the zone's lot sizes and setbacks. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Some of the unique conditions of this area include the topography. There's a pretty significant grade change across the neighborhood. The eastern edge of the neighborhood includes Sunshine Creek and its associated floodplain. And then on the western edge of the area is Silver Lake Ditch, which runs through 150 Green Rock. The existing conditions of the area, along with state statutes and the BVC policies, all inform the terms and conditions of the annexation. I'm going to highlight a few of those here, but everyone received copies of the full terms and conditions in your packet. So some of the key terms include that no subdivision of lots will be allowed to create additional lots. Only one principal dwelling unit will be allowed per lot. Any property that is located within the conveyance zone will be required to dedicate a flood control easement to the city. To connect the annexation properties to city water service, the city will construct new water mains, which will be financed by the district. And then, as with all annexations in the city, property owners are obligated to pay the stormwater and flood plant investment fee. However, for the Knollwood properties, property owners will have two options for payment. The first option allows for payment in full, and then a second option offers a payment plan where property owners can pay a monthly bill over a 10-year period, and this plan includes a 30% service charge. So again, the key issues to discuss tonight are: first is the proposed annexation with state statutes. Staff reviewed the statutes, the petition, and the proposed annexation, and find that the annexation is in compliance with these. The second issue asks you to identify whether the annexation is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And policy 1.16 is the BVCP's policy on annexation and helped guide the terms and conditions. So some key takeaways from that policy include that the annexation is required before the city could provide water service to the neighborhood, that the city will pursue annexation of western properties that are substantially developed and below the blue line, so the Knollwood neighborhood meets these requirements, and annexation will be offered in a manner and on terms and conditions that respect the existing lifestyles and densities of the area. So staff has worked really closely with district representatives and the property owner at 150 Green Rock Drive to create favorable terms of the annexation that will respect the lifestyle and character of this neighborhood. The final issue is whether residential estate zoning is appropriate for the annexation area. This zoning designation is consistent with the existing conditions of the area and the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan, including the single-family detached units, low densities, and as I mentioned earlier, the zone setbacks and lot size minimize the number of non-conforming parcels. So that really covers the key issues, and staff has drafted a recommended motion. The motion recommends that council approves the annexation and an initial zoning of residential estate. But I think we can answer questions at this time before the applicant does their presentation.
Okay. So do we have questions for staff? David?
Yes, well, I'll start off by just asking a couple questions about the zoning. I guess most of the lots are actually within they couldn't be subdivided anyway in residential estate. The only one I could really see that was above 30,000 square feet was the 150. And that one also is, the agreement is no subdivision after annexation as well?
That's right.
Just wanted to make sure about that. Okay. And I saw that the request in the petition was for RR1, but that was evaluated and it was determined that RE was a better fit.
That's right, yeah, we kind of took a look at the setbacks in particular to see which was kind of the best fit for the existing conditions, and it turned out that residential estate was the most appropriate.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, those lots would be pretty small for RR1. Everything would be out of conformance, I think. And then the, I guess, related to that, do we have any idea, is there a reasonable amount of conformance, or are there some setback nonconformances that will be there? Do you have an idea of the kind of the amount of nonconformance that we might be looking at?
You know what, I don't know off the top of my head what proportion of the properties are not conformant, but I could certainly figure that out. I could do the math.
Just curious. I know that there'll be, everything's fine until you maybe go try to submit a permit for something, and then that gets looked at, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that one of the bigger challenges was the side setbacks. There's a couple that I kind of remember that were pretty close to the property line.
Okay, great. A couple others, but I'll let other people go first.
Okay, John.
Yeah, just a couple questions. I understand that the district will be responsible for raising the funds to build the water distribution system. How about road repairs? Are there any anticipated road repairs that'll require some city road activity coming up?
Yep, so as part of the project, kind of the infrastructure construction includes both the construction of the new water mains as well as reconstruction of the road. And that also will be financed by the district.
I see. Are there any other significant infrastructure-related expenses that are anticipated?
I think water and roads are the two biggies.
Okay. Then I also noted that there's this language about a floodway easement along Sunshine Creek there. Has that already been designated, where the easement has to be and the size that it has to be and so on?
So the easement that we typically require is an easement that covers the conveyance zone as mapped by the city, and that mapping exists. So unless that changes by the time those easements will be dedicated, those will be the boundaries.
And if it changes, then the new...
Then the new conveyance zone boundary. And I don't think there's a change anticipated. So it's most likely what the boundaries are today.
Okay. And then also, I understand that this district has, until now, had its own water supply arrangements. So is the city taking over the water rights that have been associated with that and the facilities that has been used until now?
So the district's water rights, the city will not be acquiring those. And then this district will decommission their water system once all the properties are connected to city water.
So why would the city not be interested in taking over those water rights?
The water that the district uses is taken from wells in that area, and so it's groundwater, and our water rights portfolio managers just determined that those were not necessary to the city.
Can I follow up with that, John?
Yeah, go ahead.
Didn't the memo say, though, there was some, was it Silver Lake Ditch or Farmers Ditch? Silver Lake Ditch?
Yeah, 150 Green Rock has a share of Silver Lake Ditch rights, and so we'll follow the Silver Lake Ditch settlement agreement that the city has with the ditch, which says that at the time of annexation, a property owner can either sell their water rights to the city at fair market value, or they can sign of right of first refusal that whenever the property transfers outside of its nuclear family, then the city has a right to purchase the water rights at that time.
I see, okay. All righty, any other questions? Crystal?
I do. Excuse me. Kathleen, there is a little ditch path on the east side of Knollwood and on the west side of 4th Street behind the properties there. And is any of that path within the annexation boundaries?
Let me pull up this map here.
It goes up from generally Spruce Street.
So along here?
I can't see it on the main screen.
Oh, I can't point to it. How?
Along the pink,
Oh, there it is, just showed up.
right?
There it is. So where are you, Crystal?
Well,
Along-
starting on Spruce Street, but you haven't been out there to see it.
I'm just not sure which exactly where you're referring to.
See where the pink is? It generally kind of follows up there to a certain point. But I was wondering, and maybe one of the residents,
No, hang on, okay?
but
We're
not
going to
now.
have a public comment.
no,
But
I'll
you need
ask
to
you
wait,
when
I'm
we have
sorry.
public comment. Thank you.
What is the
Thank you.
question? Okay, you want to know if that path is in
I'll
annexation?
I just asked it, Peter, but is the path within the boundaries of the annexation?
I don't know off the top of my head because I'm not sure exactly where you're referring to. So
But
we can
it
either
sounds like
clarify
someone
later.
in the audience might, so when that person speaks, I'll ask them that question.
John?
Okay, just to follow up on the water, on the wells and so on, I understand that the city doesn't see any particular use in its water management plan for those wells, but are they then going to be abandoned, or what is their legal fate? Because one can imagine that those wells be sold and used for some other water supply purpose that could ultimately affect the city.
Yeah, I believe we're requiring them to be abandoned.
I see. Thank you.
So, and I'm just going to follow up too. So are there no fungible water rights that are associated with those wells? Are they old exempt wells, or is there nothing that we can use to put more water rights in our portfolio, which, we can do under the Growing Cities Doctrine? Is that why we're not pursuing a transfer of those rights? Because they don't exist? Do you understand what the issue is?
Yeah, we're asking that the district just abandon those water rights.
Okay. But they're not paper rights that can be transferred.
I will
our
admit,
benefit.
at least I'm not a water rights attorney, so I don't want to go any further than my knowledge exists.
Okay.
I suspect Hella is able to
I'm
address
not a
that.
water rights attorney either. I think our staff and we worked with the city's water rights attorney and city water staff, and they looked at all of the water rights that exist, and they determined that this was the best course of action. I think they wanted that water to stay in the ground, and it ultimately drains to the creek.
Okay. I mean, I generally, I would defer to, a water rights attorney who's really looked at all that water. And, if there's no paper decree that gives them an interest that they can sell to us or give to us as part of the annexation, maybe that was why they came to that determination. But it would be nice to know more specifically how that occurred.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Yeah, just to also follow up on the path that Crystal alluded to, which I've enjoyed through that neck of the woods frequently. Is there any mention that that is going to be a public right-of-way and will continue to be usable?
For
This is a
like
path.
Spruce Street?
This is a path going along Sunshine Creek that comes up to you can access the streets in Knollwood from Spruce Street. And it's a delightful path. I just don't know what its status is.
I've got it on Google Maps.
Yeah.
I'm going to send a picture to Cindy, so.
I'm looking at it now. Most of that area, John, is already inside the city limits. And Crystal, that area, a lot of it from Spruce Street going north along Sunshine Creek there, some of that is already inside the city limits.
So what's the status of it?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to look at that development there at the end of Spruce Street to understand if it's already within an easement area or not. But I can look into that and let you know.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions before we go to public participation?
I'll ask another, on the process question. So the alternative to doing it by election, I guess, is to get a majority of the property owners to submit the petition, and then you can actually do it without the election. So the election process, is that done in conjunction with a regular election, like in November, or do you actually do it separately?
So, sorry, go ahead.
So the election commissioners and I think the district court will set an election date.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to coincide with the November elections.
So these folks may have their own special election day.
Yeah, it'll be its own special election. And if we did not do this annexation by election, 100% of the property owners would need to sign the annexation petition. And so this is really, because we have to replace the entire water system, it's really an all or nothing annexation, which is why we're using the procedures by election.
Great, thank you.
Okay, that's helpful. All righty, any more questions for staff?
I want to follow up on the question about those paths, and I don't know where those paths are, but generally upon annexation, if there is a public access easement or right-of-way, even if it was to the county upon annexation, those would then be to the city. So if such an easement exists, if it's not currently already dedicated to the public and within the city, then the status shouldn't change with annexation. Rights of way within the annexation area automatically become city right of way, and the same should happen with public access easements.
So on the map up there, the parcel map is showing the streets as public rights of way, so those are currently county rights of way, and they will become city rights of way.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
One more question. I saw in the petition that there was a request to address trailhead parking for Sanitas, and I didn't see anything in the agreement on that. Was it decided just not to put that into the agreement then, to address that in the agreement?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that there is nothing specific related to traffic control in the agreement is that it may need to change at some point in the future, and we would have to come back and amend that agreement.
Okay.
But we have communicated with the neighborhood what the different traffic control devices that we will be replacing or putting in new will be as part of the construction project and the annexation.
Okay, so the plan is to have signs that say no trailhead parking on the drives there, or is that something like that?
We will replace some of the existing no parking signs that are county signs with city signs.
Okay.
And then we're putting in a no outlet sign at the entrance of the neighborhood so people understand
Okay,
that.
Okay.
thank you.
Crystal?
If this area is annexed to the city, wouldn't they be able to apply to be included in the neighborhood parking permit program?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Any more questions? All right, so we'll go to the public participation portion.
Applicant?
Applicant portion.
Oh, I'm sorry, applicant portion. Yes, sorry. And please give your name and address. And
I'm Mark Schoenhaus. I'm part of the Knollwood Metropolitan District.
is his mic on?
It should be, yep. It looks like it. There's green. So I'm Mark Schoenhaus. I'm with the Knollwood Metropolitan District. And so what I wanted to do real quickly was just kind of touch through a few things, mostly give you context of how we got here. We're kind of at a point where we've negotiated lots of things.
Excuse me,
but
Cindy, would you set his clock to 10 minutes? Oh, yes. Thank you.
But the whole path to get here is, I think, pertinent to the end decision. So we started out just being a water district, and we became a metropolitan district in order to provide additional services, so primarily road services. Our roads back, and especially in the floods of 2013, were very impacted in some areas. So that was one reason in that time frame that we became a metropolitan district. And also the whole financing, we realized everything was going to be very expensive. Didn't realize how expensive, but we realized we needed to be able to fund it also. So, but we were also planning at that time to stay within Boulder County. And then a few things have changed since then. The reins, the municipalization initiatives, there were some daily camera articles that kind of stirred us all up, and so that's kind of led to a point where also the Sunshine Canyon fire recently, all these things kind of led us down this path of trying to figure out, do we have another option? And that option has presented itself with both the blue line moving and moving from Area 3 to 2. So that is kind of given us at least a line of sight to being annexed into Boulder, and hopefully then resolving or providing to our residents water services and roads. So that's kind of the how it's evolved over the last probably 10 years or so. And then along the way, before the annexation thing was even apparent, we had to go through the, being able to provide funding for this. And so we have already, essentially taxed ourselves. And that's how we get to that point where we can pay for the whole project for the most part. Not the whole project, but, the huge portion of it. So, but along the way, there are different residents that have different opinions. It's not like you can possibly get 100% of everybody to agree to spending the kind of money that we're talking about. So we're also, or some people just don't want to be in the city of Boulder. So we've had this, there's this A or B. So the A being as is, so stay within Boulder, or stay within the county and kind of go it on our own, or annex. Which annex into Boulder, the B for Boulder. So those are kind of the two options really on the table. From the board's perspective, we're recommending the annexation path. So I would like to give you a couple more things. Have here kind of a list of what we think are benefits to Boulder. Number one is we're paying most of, trying to update everything. We're willing to pay the tax base, the PIF payments. Many of the residents, of course, there are resident, or they have businesses in Boulder or participate in lots of things within Boulder. I think one of the key things here, though, is the fire protection on the western border, and of course the 2017 Sunshine Canyon fire was really highlighted that. Now, the success or the lack of destruction to private property is probably more due to all the efforts for the intergovernmental agencies working together to figure out and mitigate fire over the previous years leading up to that point. But, the whole process that right now, if we had a fire today, we'd have to get, somebody, there would be a connection from the Boulder Water District into the Knollwood distribution system, and it's cumbersome. It just doesn't make sense. So we think all the residents, I think, would agree that the increased fire protection on the western border is probably one of the biggest unintended benefits that has come apparent in the last couple of years. Of course, connection to the city water system instead of well use, we have very hard water and would like to not have hard water. And, also there's a little piece that may not be apparent, but the Knollwood annexation would reduce costs to the municipalization effort, we believe. I mean, we're not part of that, the details of that, but that's something we believe is true. And, of course, being consistent with all the different policies and statutes, that's kind of a no-brainer. So this is, we've had many different meetings over time. Probably, I should have counted, but I would say we've had 10 to 15 meetings with our neighbors over time. This is what we presented just a couple weeks ago, and we had, we had city staff there participating and helping us, and that was actually a huge benefit to have those guys there to, present things and not be scary Boulder. That was great. So this is kind of the timeline we'd outlined to people. We're, really over here on the left-hand side. There's going to be things happening between now and and hopefully the end. We hope to get the design started very soon. I should mention that that design start's not gated by really having city council approve it. We need to do this design work anyway. So before we would actually be the, what do you call it, the final vote in the summer by the city council, is kind of the timeline we're thinking. We're going to start to design, because we would have to go down either, we're going to have to do the same amount of work if we go down the annexation path or the stay as is path. So, yeah. And I wanted to mention a few things that are kind of some, on residents' minds. I mean, there could be some people that'll be talking tonight, but these are kind of the key things that come up in discussions. As I mentioned, the fire protection's a big benefit. There's an increase in number of fire hydrants from 4 to over 10. And the water pressure, just is kind of a comforting fact that those things would be available if we go through the annexation path. The construction timeline, that was discussed a little bit at our last meeting a couple weeks ago. And what was mentioned was that it would probably end up starting in 2020. We'd love it to, the sooner the better from our perspective. Why is it so expensive? That's kind of, it is what it is at this point. Parking, I think you've talked about the parking and understand what's going to happen there. And then another thing was snow plowing. That wasn't mentioned earlier, but that's something that we have come up with a solution there with working with city staff, and we think that is very viable going forward. Basically, we'd have to create a homeowner association and we'd pay for it through that way. It'd be great if we could get county to do it because they do a great job. So those are the things that the residents have mentioned. And just in summary, we've had over the last, I don't know how many months, but many months, we've had a lot of constructive negotiations and discussions with Boulder City staff, and we think that the result is that Knollwood is going to stay like it is now. So, for example, at one point there was curbs and gutters and streetlights discussed, and that's not where we ended up at. So again, we're recommending from the Knollwood Metropolitan District Board perspective to go forward with the annexation. And we think that that's by far the best option for Knollwood to come into Boulder. So that's all I had.
Okay, thanks. Do we have questions for the applicant? Go ahead, John.
Yeah, a few questions. You indicated in a previous slide that there was concern about the expense associated with this, which is understandable. But how does the expense that is associated with this proposal compare with your alternative of staying outside the city?
Well, they're similar. So the bond issues that we've done were modeled around staying within county. So they're very, very similar. They're not much different.
So the financial aspect is not the driving force as far as the district is concerned?
Correct. We're gonna have to spend money either way. Correct.
I see. Also, can you talk about the fate of the path along Sunshine Creek? I think there's
I can give an opinion, but I have no facts to base my opinion on. It looks like to me that the path.
Mark, but it's my turn. I'll talk.
Okay, fine, but I can give my opinion. So I believe that part of the path is across private property, the east-west part of it, and the north-south, I have no idea.
So does this agreement address that at all?
No.
Okay, I can see that that's an issue that we might need to deal with. Oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to monopolize.
I'm picking up that maybe the neighbors don't want this path to exist.
There was a point where Google Maps is very good about picking up people who are signed into Google that walk along a certain way. They'll translate that into a path, and that was definitely not desired.
And you had a cooler of beer in your fridge on Google Maps, too.
Yeah.
So it's sending people into your neighborhood and they're walking, and you guys would rather that didn't happen? Mostly.
Well, I don't know. I can't really speak for everybody, but
Be honest.
maybe you could ask whoever's going to speak later.
Okay.
But it's not near me, so I don't
Okay.
notice it. But there's definitely people who don't want people walking across their properties.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions for the applicant?
Yeah, if I can pursue the matter of the abandonment of the wells that you now use in your water supply. Will those be abandoned both physically and legally? Or what is the
Yes.
ultimate fate of
Yes.
whatever
Both.
the nature of your water
Physically.
rights are as opposed to the physical facilities?
Well, the physical facilities will be abandoned physically, so we'll cap the walls, and you can't use those.
Right, I understand that, but with respect to the water rights associated with
Hasn't been
those?
discussed.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Okay. Crystal?
Just
Oh,
want to
sorry.
quickly, Leslie, did you have any knowledge of that question around the abandonment of the rights too?
You know anything, Carolyn?
Am I allowed to address? I'm Carolyn Steffel.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got
Attorney
your
for
name
the
wrong.
Metropolitan District.
Sorry about
Oh, okay. Yes, it's actually addressed in the intergovernmental agreement between the district and the city, where we address what we're going to do, and it does say that the water rights will be abandoned. And that would be a legal process of abandonment. I can try to find the actual language in there, but. In the district, yeah, let's see.
While she's looking, it's such a great chapter, title, The Story of Planning, Legal Process of Abandonment.
It's in 421.
2-1, okay. The immediately following connection of, this is the current draft of the IGA, which needs to be approved by both the Metro District Board, which they're meeting next week, and by the City Council. But it currently provides that the district shall abandon such water rights in accordance with Colorado law. The district will vacate or assign easements of the district as directed by the city. The district owns alluvial groundwater rights, and the city waives its right to purchase such water rights. The district will abandon such rights as in accordance with Colorado law.
And that's packet page 59.
Thank you. Okay, is anyone else? Oh, Crystal, sorry.
Are you finished? If you,
Yes, I'm finished.
you're welcome to.
Yep. Okay.
No, Mark, I wanted to ask you a question, but yeah. So I was reading in the annexation agreement and the packet, and it addressed the roofs. And, you know, Boulder has an ordinance where all the roofs had to be replaced by actually last year or so, from wood shingles to some kind of composition or metal. But do many people in Knollwood have wood roofs?
We did do an inventory, and the answer is no, there are no wood roofs right now.
Oh, okay, great.
And we can confirm that with the fire department, actually went out and looked at it.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Sure.
Okay, are there any more questions for the applicant?
All right, thank you. Now it's time for the public participation portion. So if you have, if you'd like to make comments on this item and you haven't signed up with Cindy yet, please sign up and then she'll add you to the list. So I just have 3 folks signed up here. Lester Wall, Pamela Dennis, and then Barry Bear. So the first one is Lester Wall.
Can I let Barry go first?
Yeah, it's okay with me. I don't care what order they're in. As long as we have your information, that's fine. So you'll have 3 minutes. Please give your name and address.
It's Barry Bear. I live at 2265 Knollwood Drive. I've been a resident of Knollwood for the last 10 years. I'm also a treasurer of the Metropolitan District and have been treasurer for the last 10 years. Since the house I bought, the treasurer, he was treasurer, and they said, well, if you're coming in, you have to be the treasurer, so I did. But I'm a CPA, so it's all right. To answer your question on the path, the east-west part is owned by the house at 299 Green Rock Drive. And the individual who owns that house actually carries special insurance for the east-west portion of that line, and that's it. Okay, the rest of the path is a social path, period. It's been there from time immemorial, okay, but that's all it is a social path. But the owner of 299 Green Rock is, at this point, will leave it as is, but he does own the property for that piece of land, okay?
Great.
And that's why it's not addressed separately in the agreement, because it's a homeowner's property. He's choosing to allow people to use that path at the rate that we currently have. We don't want it to increase. And I just want to say that as a member of the board, we do support the annexation. We think it's the best result. And one of the reasons is the main reason is we want Boulder water. Our water, Boulder water has 3 grains of hardness. Ours is at 80. And most homes have to have reverse osmosis systems at some portion of their house. And that would be a saving to each person there. And that's, if there are any questions, I'm available. Otherwise, that's all I have to say.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
It's helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, Lester Wall and then Pamela Dennis.
Lester Wall, 115 Green Rock Drive. I've been a Knollwood resident for 33 years. And in 2017, there were embers coming right close to my house. That really freaked me out. I'm very concerned about fire protection. I have done the wildfire prevention thing in my home, but it's very scary because I've been evacuated 3 times since I've been in a Knollwood resident. So the idea of having more fire hydrants in the neighborhood is a very reassuring concept for me. I think the differences in pressures in the 2 systems is really challenging. I think we will have more fires. That seems a likely thing. We've had 3 already. The last one was really close. So fire protection is a big issue for me, and it's part of the reason I'm supporting the annexation. I think it's a very good question to ask, why are we willing to spend all this money? Well, we're going to spend money. We have a sustainable, we have a water system. That's all. We have to change it. We have to do a lot of stuff with it. The costs there are uncertain. We were very encouraged, I was, by Dan, the utilities manager, the way he looked at things. It was a very comforting way that I think he would work getting us onto city water, which is going to be a very complicated thing. And I also want to say, because no one on the board will say this, that they've been working their asses off, and it's a volunteer position, and I just don't think that's a sustainable position either. We'd have to go forward, and the board would be spending a lot of time with what we have to do with our water system to make it circular and update it to modern standards. So I just want to say, as a resident, I'm very supportive of annexation.
Great, thank you.
Any questions?
Okay, and then we have Pamela Dennis.
Hello. I'm Pamela Dennis. I live at 2195 Knollwood Drive. I've lived in Boulder for 40 years, 25 years in Knollwood neighborhood. I'm in favor of the annexation, but I have to admit I have an ulterior motive. 20 years ago, my husband was asked to serve on the Knollwood Water District. He was asked to keep the water system in good mechanical operation. For 20 years, of multiple early morning emergencies, interfacing with fire departments, county staff, water system maintenance folks, suppliers, lawyers, and now city planners and city engineers. In other words, he's kind of like an ER doc 24/7. So I'm in favor of annexation because it will finally provide him with a retirement plan. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Cindy, is anyone else signed up? Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this item? Seeing nobody.
We have one.
Oh, we do? Oh, well, then you need to come up and introduce yourself, give us your address, and then when you're finished speaking, head over to Cindy and fill out a form, if you don't mind, a brief little 2-line form.
I'm also a resident, and my name is Pat Phillipson, 265 Brookside Court. And I just want to speak a quick moment about the path, because I have more interest in it than some of them because we live close to it. But, and I'm also been there for 50 years. And the path originated because of a vacation of the 3rd Street and was opened as a pedestrian equestrian right-of-way along the creek. And it also extended into Knollwood on the early plots. And so it's important to the residents, and a lot of us use it. And I just wanted you to know that it was an important issue for the people who live in the lower part of the neighborhood. And the public is entitled to come through. I recently investigated putting a handrail along the path, and the county land use board gave me a document that said that we were free to put a handrail along as a neighborhood if we should choose. We haven't discussed that as a neighborhood, but we could not in any way stop the public from coming through. So
Interesting. That's interesting.
Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can you describe a little bit further the nature of the easement that up for that path? You say it's officially available for the public, but I'm confused about in what way that's documented or made official.
When the 3rd Street was vacated, the city took responsibility for the 3rd Street, and they established a right-of-way which was open for the equestrian, pedestrian, bike use. And it goes all along the creek, actually. But in the present case, it goes to a certain spot and then goes east-west. As Barry was mentioning, it goes through some sort of no man's land, which was first established as a right-of-way through the original owners of that property, and then it was removed because it moved past their house and was placed in another spot that goes up the hill. And so it's a little bit murky about that land. It's an outlot that's next to the house that Barry described. And so, but it is used by many pedestrians and some bikes.
Thank you.
Can I ask you another question, though? When the county said that no one could block off that path, or I don't remember exactly the terms you used. Yes. Does that mean no one could put a fence across it, or?
Exactly.
Interesting.
And I have that documentation from the lady in the county planning office, which I'd be happy to. I just haven't even shared that out. I just looked into it and got some notification, because we're interested in putting a little pathway railing there because it's dangerous in the winter.
Right.
So I was looking at that just as a tiny little railing. So
thank you. I think probably folks would be interested in what you found, if you can forward any documents or notes or whatever to the city staff. That would be great. And
maybe while we were sitting here, and I can show you on the map, that path connection is in a dedicated easement. It's already considered an existing path connection on the city's transportation network plan. And so it's already located for that portion of that private property within a pedestrian easement. And then as it goes south through that vacated 3rd Street right-of-way, there's an easement there as well for that connection down to Spruce Street.
Okay, great.
Right, so I don't know.
Does that mean,
I'm not sure how you define a social path, but it has a legal basis is
Okay.
really my main message.
Great, thank you so much. That was really informative. Okay, Crystal.
Can I ask a question of Chris? Today I was looking at the transportation side. I couldn't find the little path named anywhere or even identified, but you mentioned the transportation network plan, or is that on the city website?
It is, so if you go to, the easiest way to find it is go to the main city webpage, go to the maps page, and then if you look at all maps, there's one that's the transportation master plan, and that's where it shows the existing, all the transportation connections and underpasses, as well as all of the proposed ones that have been identified on different areas. And then through our GIS mapping, I just pulled up to confirm the easements
Great, thank
that
you.
do exist. Sorry for the confusion earlier.
Can I just ask him real quick? So can you confirm that there's an easement from that cul-de-sac at the end of Green Rock Drive all the way to Spruce Street?
I will show you.
That would be great.
Maybe. It's not over there, but we can see it over here. Sometimes that TV doesn't like us. So you can see the path connection comes from Spruce Street, coming north here, and then see this green highlighted little hatched area? That's the public access easement that then connects up to the street.
So the pink hatched is.
Those are utility easements.
Oh, okay. Can people walk on that then?
No, those are for utilities. The green one is a pedestrian easement.
So the path doesn't go all the way to Spruce, the
It
easement?
does. It does. So this area right here, where you see the mouse, that's both a utility easement as well as a pedestrian easement. It has both.
That's what
That then connects down to Spruce Street here by the tennis courts.
Okay, great. Does that help? Or do you have another question still?
Yeah, I just was hoping that this could be put on the maps relevant to the annexation documents, and that would make it very clear that that will be there as part of the annexation.
And it is in the plat maps that were in the packet. They're just really fuzzy to read at that resolution, but it actually delineates that easement on the plat.
I have another question about that. So if the city has that easement, it's a pedestrian easement, does the landowner need to have his special insurance for, it sounds like somebody's got some special insurance to cover people walking on his property?
Yeah, but I'm going to tell him not to. If the city owns
I think that's an item for that property owner to consult with their attorney on.
Okay.
I don't want to give them legal advice.
But
we need the members of the public to not be talking unless it's during public comment.
Go ahead, John.
So will the city take maintenance responsibility for that path?
It's shown as an existing path connection, whether the city maintains it now or if the county maintains it. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I can find that out.
Well, if the county maintains it now, but I presume the city would take that responsibility after annexation.
That's the typical way that it works.
And then the city would be involved in this installation of a banister or a railing that we heard from a member of the public.
Yeah, that's something we could follow up on for sure.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. So any more questions for staff before I bring it back to the board for deliberation? Okay. Could you put the key issues up again for us?
Yep.
Thank you.
Sorry, we had to switch the cable back.
No, it's fine. That was really very cool that you were able to figure that out so quickly, right while we were in the middle of looking at it. John?
I realize that I may need to make a declaration here.
Okay, a disclosure?
Beg pardon?
A disclosure?
A disclosure, yeah. And that is that I have had professional dealings with the attorney's firm previously in water management matters. And I've also dealt with this previously when I was on the County Planning Commission in various aspects. And I'm a shareholder in the Silver Lake Ditch, which goes through the area of concern, but I think none of those prevent me from being able to act fairly and impartially in this matter.
Okay, thank you. Great. All right, we have our key issues up. The first one is the proposed annexation consistent with state statutes pertaining to annexation of a property in the city of Boulder. And I think I'll do the negative polling with this to see, does anyone disagree with that, with the consistency of the proposed annexation with state statutes pertaining to annexation of a property in the city of Boulder?
No, I agree with staff's finding.
Okay. All right, then we can move to number 2 unless people have any comments. Okay, the second one is the proposed annexation consistent with the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan? Does anyone on the board think that the proposed annexation is inconsistent with the Boulder Valley Comp Plan? Nobody. Okay. And number 3, is the initial zoning of RE appropriate for the properties in the annexation area? David, you asked some great questions about that, so it's very helpful. Does anyone believe or think that the initial zoning of RE is inappropriate for the properties in the annexation area? No. Okay, are there any other comments then? Anybody like to make a comment or anything? No?
I do have a comment, and thank you very much for everybody who talked about the path. And when I was younger, I used to run with a group of young moms, and that's how I found the path. And then about 40 years ago, we were coming down from Sanitas, and a little black Labrador, a puppy, followed us, and we stopped at the neighbors and said, "This is someone's puppy." And he said, "No, this is a stray that's been here." So we took Lucky to the Humane Society, and they asked us if we would board the little puppy, Lucky. So you know where that ends up. You never board a puppy. And that was our first Labrador in Boulder, Lucky. So I have a great affection for the little path in Knollwood.
Thanks, Crystal.
It was literally a Shaggy Dog story.
Well, I'd like to just commend staff on digging up the old staff report from the 70s and figuring out that this is the first annexation election that we've handled in 40 years and coming up with a process for that. Because I've never dealt with an annexation election on planning board in 3 years, and I now know why, because nobody has for 40 years. So good luck with coming up with the right way to vote and all the other things you still have to resolve.
Thanks, Armin. Yeah, I'm definitely going to support this, especially for the fire protection aspect of it. I do agree with the comments from the public that there will be more fires, and this is a dangerous situation, and you need to have good water pressure to supply your hydrants, and there's a lot of community just east of this development that's vulnerable. So I think it's a really good thing to get this into the city and get it on city water and get the city fire protection involved. So anybody else have any comments?
Well, just I just am really thrilled to see this. I love this neighborhood. It'll be wonderful to have it as part of Boulder. And I'll just echo some of Harmon's comments. It was interesting to actually go and click over and read part of the Colorado Constitution as part of the research into this. So it's the first time I've gone to read part of the Constitution in preparation for a meeting.
That's neat. Okay.
And I'll make a motion.
Okay, great, thanks. Oh, sorry.
One comment. I think somebody, perhaps the applicant, suggested that this would lead to better snow plowing arrangements, and I'm not sure that that's a valid conclusion. My perception is that this is not a major road and that it may not be plowed as early as Broadway or other main arterials in the city. And I'm aware that the county has different plowing arrangements than the city, and so I I wouldn't have too high expectations on that front.
Crystal?
Just a comment about the plowing, but the city does plow streets that have a grade change to them just to keep people, safe. And they're small little cul-de-sacs and outlying areas, and you could see what the city plows because they post it on their website.
Okay, thanks. Do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd love to. I move to recommend to City Council approval of the proposed annexation with an initial zoning of residential estate, RE, pertaining to the request number LUR 2018-00048, incorporating the staff memorandum and its attachments as findings of fact, and subject to the recommended additional terms and conditions of annexation as provided for in attachment C to this staff memorandum, and to call an annexation election for an annexation of the area subject to the recommended additional terms and conditions.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have motions made by Ensign, seconded by Gray, and does anyone want to speak to the motion before I call a vote? Yeah, go ahead.
So just a quick question for staff. I understood that there's a concurrent private annexation of 150, and I don't see attachment D listed in the motion language. Is that something that we need to address before we vote on this?
It's actually the same annexation. The property is part of this petition for annexation, but because that property already has water service from the city, we drafted a separate annexation agreement for that particular property owner. And that's mentioned in the terms and conditions
Good.
of
Thank
the
you.
election.
Okay, great. Any more comments? Okay, I'll call a vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Okay, congratulations. Good luck with City Council and your election.
Thanks.
Well, folks, do we have any matters, Cindy?
Actually, we do. Just a couple quick ones. Chris is going to address you about appointing a couple board members to the Code Change Subcommittee. I know that we're kind of jumping the gun as far as we're getting 2 new board members next month, but I'm going to let Chris kind of tell you why we need to do this.
Yeah, so as you know, there's a lot of code work going on, and Carl Geiler and his team have been working on that. And so there's a kind of a code change subcommittee. There's council members appointed to that as well as planning board members. And so Carl just wanted to check in and get those appointments because we're at the point where we want to check in with that subcommittee. So it's up to the board if you'd like to appoint members now, or if you do want to wait until after the board and commission appointments, we can do that as well. But Carl wanted to try and get something scheduled sooner rather than later.
Chris, what's the time commitment, and what are the meeting times generally going to be?
Any kind of regular schedule hasn't been set out yet, so I honestly don't know what the time commitment is. I don't think it will be very intensive, not like the use table committee is, just kind of high level, more on that kind of process side.
Okay.
But I can get more clarity if you'd like.
Okay.
I'd volunteer for that if it's a good idea.
I would too.
Is this a different thing than the use table and all that? It's a little different, but so you're going to be on both of those committees then?
Isn't the use table kind of?
It's kind of moved into public process at this point. We're not doing any meetings.
Okay.
Although we did just have the 2 public meetings, so I think we'll check in with Andrew, and it's probable that the subcommittee will meet to look at the results from that as well. But yeah, as the chair of that subcommittee, I'd be interested in being involved as well. So it sounds like there's quite a bit of interest.
So 3 people have expressed interest for this, and they want 2 folks?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you might want to see see if the new appointees are interested.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm interested also, but my perception is that given the fact that we're going to have 2 new members shortly, I wonder if it would serve us well to wait until they show up and have
If
a
I may
chance to.
jump
I think it's a whole month away, right, before the next planning board meeting?
It is another month, and we do have other committees that the new members will be able to be a part of as well. You know,
Other code committees or
no,
work
we've
plan
got-
committees?
We've
Board
got
liaisons and all that
greenways, we have land
Yeah, yeah.
board, we have DAB. So there are other things that the new folks can get involved in as well.
Right, okay,
Just
so,
Sounds like staff
that
wants us to appoint people tonight.
okay, so we have 4 people have expressed interest, and there are 2 positions. Do you guys want to work it out, or do you want us to like nominate or flip a coin? I mean,
Is there a need for backups?
no, not if there are 4 people.
No, not me. I'm saying, I mean, amongst the 4 of them, they could get this handily covered.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like everybody's wants to do it, so I don't know about having a vote or anything. What if we just flip a coin? Is that a reasonable thing to do?
We
Totally up to
could,
you.
or it is Brian's last year and Harmon's almost last year. I'm just devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Well, I
a-
have
that's
2
a good
more
point.
years and Brian has 1 more year.
But it's going to feel like
Are you
that
are you on DAB also?
right now.
Well, I'm happy not to. I'll occupy myself with other things. And
Cindy, when does the board appoint to the different liaisons and committees? Is it right after March?
We usually do it at the retreat.
Yeah, at the retreat.
And we have,
Yeah.
as you know, haven't scheduled a retreat yet, but we're in the midst of figuring that out.
Well, maybe if you get 2 appointees or whatever the staff is recommending, then you can discuss those within the context of the reorganization of your committees and whenever that's going to occur. So then you don't have to go without people before the new people are sworn in and.
We have
Yeah,
backups. I
express
mean,
interest.
all of those boards have a backup, and so I think they're covered for the next month or 2 or whenever their thing is.
Do we usually kind of do that in the retreat, right? Kind of the new assignments to liaison positions
Right,
and other things.
right.
We haven't really had subcommittees before this year, but
There were subcommittees.
I guess there were
Yeah, there were. I mean, I can remember Leonard and John Putnam being on a subcommittee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
before my time, maybe.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
my-
so
my pitch
John
for-
has kind of bowed out very graciously.
Yes, John.
And so we're left with the 3 folks. I definitely think, Harmon, have you been on any of these committees? I mean,
No, I
so I really think that you need to have, it would be good if you had that opportunity. You have 2 years left.
Well, I'd say just one of us from the subcommittee needs to be on, so I'll defer. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so
Let's take turns.
Brian and Harmon? Okay.
Got it.
That's who it looks like it's going to be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I need more time thinking about land use code.
Okay, what other matters do you have?
I have one more. The APA conference is in April, I think the second week. You told me the dates and I totally forgot them now.
Correct.
Okay, and it's going to be in San Francisco. Again, we have 2 board members coming on. However, Peter is really interested in going this year. He has something that he can explain a whole lot better than I can.
I wanted to know if anyone else of the 5 of us are interested in going. I'm on a public official committee this year, and that doesn't have any bearing on anyone's decisions because anyone who wants to go, put their hat in the ring. But if there's schedule conflicts and people can't go, then I'll work with Cindy and sort out a few issues and try to get ahead of it as we get the new board members and make sure that planning is done appropriately.
So I'm just trying to get an idea of who, other than Peter, of the 5 remaining are interested in going.
What were the exact dates? Do you know?
Chris has
Chris,
them.
I will get it here in just a second.
Oh, thank you. I could have Googled it, I suppose.
I'm out. I'm not.
I think it is too. It's the 13th through the 16th of April.
In San Fran.
It's going to be a cool place.
Obviously, I'm not going to be, but I do hope that, I mean, I know Peter's gone. You've gone twice before, right? Have you gone to 2 of these before?
Oh, yeah, I've been going, and now I'm on a committee, and I've gotten deeply involved in the event, which is the danger of going to something more than once, is you get involved, and I've been a juror on the Sustainable
And I will
Communities
offer it
Division.
to the new folks. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not going to take any of their spots. I'm trying to find out of the 5 people who'll be on planning board after you and Crystal are gone, if anyone wants to go or has a scheduling conflict, that's it.
Just trying to make a plan.
I'm interested.
Okay, there you go. Then you have precedent over me, so I'll make other plans.
Well,
No, it's okay. All I'm trying to do is organize my calendar, and I have people asking me about the committee I'm on, and will I be there and will I not be there? So I'm just trying to sort this out, because I have a family that needs to know if I'm in town that weekend. So I'm in the doghouse if I go.
I probably have scheduling conflicts, and as much as I would love to go. I just suggest that if it really looks like no matter what, there are going to be 2 members, whether it's new members, we might want to see if we can get the accommodations booked ahead of time and just stick the members wherever
Right.
the city chooses.
I'm just not sure if they're going to go.
Okay.
You mean, the
if
new
2
members, I'm not sure if they want or.
Yeah.
I think what he's saying is if 2 people, if we're looking at costs and we know 2 people will go, we should make reservations. That's a great point.
Sure. That's a good point.
Well, before they're sold out, before all the room blocks are gone, et cetera, et cetera.
Good point, yes. Thank you, because it'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, if
David,
they're
were you
even available.
interested in going?
Well, I was just checking. I have the board meeting that was moved out of that weekend, so I would be available, but I'm not like itching to go. So I won't.
Okay.
I won't, unless it just really, if you need a second person.
So I did want to say, I've never been on a APA trip through planning board, professionally. I've gone to a number of them. The ones in San Francisco and the West Coast, they're fabulous. And I was waiting, I couldn't go to Seattle. I was waiting for it to come back. And now I'm going to be off, so I highly recommend, I like the suggestion to reserve some rooms or figure out what you can do. Maybe you could put it under Liz's and my names, and then you can, no. And then you can transfer it out. But I don't know how they work, but it's worth a call. I think that's a good suggestion.
I guess for planning board members who are on the fence, I've only been to 2 APA conferences in my life, once as a planner and once as a planning board member. And, in both cases, it's a really informative experience to find out how people are handling planning problems and challenges in other jurisdictions around the country. So, that's always a mind-expanding endeavor that's worthwhile, I think, and you come back to Boulder and see that we can do things differently here, or we are already doing things better than they're doing in other places, but it's nice to have perspective. So I would highly encourage everybody to go at some point, especially because the city is so generous to let us do that on their dime.
I went once, and I came back and I gave a report to the planning board.
You did. That's a great report, too.
I really think that if the city's paying for you to go, you should do something like that. But,
I'm serving on a committee
I heard.
of public officials with my own time to represent the city, and that's what I'm doing.
So is there generally a limit of 2?
I believe it's 2. I have a feeling at one year we sent 3, but I'm going to double check with our finance department.
Yeah, that's our typical practice, is that we have funding reserved for 2 board members to go.
Especially a pricey area like San Francisco.
Yeah, plus with 3, you have to take minutes the whole time and probably notice it.
Yeah.
My hand will get really tired.
And actually, in San Francisco, if there's a conference that's going on that's a governmental one, you can actually ask for the government rate at the non-conference hotel. And it's hotels, and they're often lower than the conference hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And the Palace was one of them.
Okay.
John, did you have something?
Yeah, I'm the liaison to RAB, and I fear that I may be out of town for the March meeting of RAB. So I'm trying to remember if there's an alternate for that meeting or not. And I just want to give a heads up to whoever that is.
We do have an alternate. Let me look it up here.
We may, they may get the opportunity to jump in.
Cindy's looking it up, I think.
I couldn't remember who it was.
We did get a, we did,
Alternate is
Right.
David.
David.
Me?
You.
You didn't even know.
Who is it?
Lord, how did I do that?
Oh, all right.
You felt guilty about the meetings you're missing, so you signed up for it.
What is the date?
I'm not even sure what the date is.
Okay.
I can look that up too.
Oh,
Look that up.
But the March meeting.
the March one, yeah. Their February one is on Monday, so I can make that.
I see here.
Oh, I kind of vaguely remember this now.
I have
Haze of enthusiasm.
March 18th,
March 18th.
Monday, March 18th
March 18th.
at 6.
All right.
It's in the municipal
It's in-
utilities
yeah.
building there.
Enjoy.
All right. Great. I can go.
is there anything
Thank you.
else? Cindy, is there anything else?
No meeting on March 7th. You're free to go. And Liz and Crystal, this is your last meeting.
I know, I was hoping you would take our picture.
I sure can.
I don't have a picture of the board, and I really would like to have one. So
Yeah, give Chris a little moment.
I don't know if I should do this after adjournment or prior to or whatever, but here you go.
It's very meta.
It's on
There'll be a
TV.
video of us getting our picture together.
I think maybe we should do
Got the whole thing on
one.
DVR too, so does me. I'll watch it over.
You know what? The YouTube is not a great place to get stills from.
No, it's not.
Come on in, John.
No, but you can watch the meeting at 2x, which is the way to go.
Act like we like each other.
You can smile on this first one, and the next one, act like you really would,
Okay.
which is not smiling. Okay, I'm taking several.
Great.
All right.
What a good
So wait,
idea.
I'm gonna like, are we doing one where we're not
Yeah, hammer
smiling?
time.
Yeah, not.
Don't we
gonna do
get
the
to make
hammer time.
speeches at some point?
Act like you're,
Yeah, we're gonna say something.
act like you're really being serious.
Okay,
All right. All right.
thanks.
I want to go on record and
Thank you so much.
thank Liz and Crystal for a terrific job that they did. We will really miss you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing things up that
It's been,
that only you would know to bring up, that I've learned a lot from you on planning board because you bring things up. I'm like, what is she talking about? And then I'm like, wow, this is a big deal.
Thank you, and you got to hear the story about Lucky.
I love that
How I got
story.
lucky. I just wanted to say a couple things, and I want to thank the staff. You all, well, you know, Planning Board could not do anything without you, but you're all so professional, and your presentations are so well thought out, and I really appreciate it. And Hella, we really appreciate you because you're so fast responding. And I just read this book, Appealing for Justice. I'm going to bring a copy by to Hella, and I hope you read it. It's a wonderful kind of history of an era that I belong to and what went on with all the civil rights struggles and fair housing. And then it was really centered around this woman, Jean Dubofsky, who's a Boulder resident, who was a state Supreme Court justice, and took Amendment 2, the appeal of Amendment 2 to the U.S. Supreme Court. Well, she didn't take it. There were some plaintiffs that she was representing, and that was the amendment that would have banned cities from enacting any protections for gay and lesbian members of their city, like through their human resource department. And Boulder was a a party to that suit, and the plaintiffs prevailed, and luckily we don't have the Amendment 2, which was just sort of codified hate in this state, was overturned, thanks to the work of Boulder residents and the support of the Boulder City Council at the time. But it's a really fascinating story, and you lovers, you lawyers would...
We're lovers, too.
You lawyers would really appreciate all the kind of legal maneuvering that went on. And I also want to say, when I got on planning board, there was one woman on planning board, and that was Mary Young, and she was the chair. And now that I leave planning board, the only two women I've served with were Mary Young and Liz, and it's fitting that as my term concludes, Liz is the chair, that they were two wonderful representatives and bookends to my tenure on planning board. So thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Happy to be your bookend. Anytime.
I didn't know how else to phrase
That's
it.
awesome. No, I really enjoyed my time here. I've been on boards for 10 years now and learned a lot.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll come back. I have a one-year appointment at CU, so maybe after that's over. But I've learned so much from all of you. You've all got talents and information and skills that I don't have, and that I've been able to lean on you guys and rely on you, and you've been so great and gracious and really a nice group of people to work with. And staff, Cindy, so great. I wanted to say, when I first started on these city boards, I came on just loaded for bear, I was like, things are screwed up and I'm gonna fix it and all this stuff. And I know that people, your next group of people may be the same way, and you'll have to straighten them out. But what I've learned is that there are a lot of folks who are working really hard in the city, and they're very conscientious, and they have integrity, and they definitely don't deserve the criticism and the accusations and the conspiracy theories, and they're actually really good people. And yeah, and I wish everybody could have this experience, because it's really valuable. I've really gotten a lot out of it. So anyway, choked up.
Job with the gavel, too.
Yeah, I'm awesome with this gavel.
Not yet, not yet.
I love it when you do the gavel at the end of some meeting.
Did you say
Yeah,
not yet?
well, as much as you deserve the last word, after serving with you and Crystal now for 3 years on planning board, it would be wrong of me to let you bow out without saying some nice words and words of appreciation for both of you. We work on a board together that deals with contentious issues. There's passion out there, and there's passion up here. Disagreements out there, disagreements up here. The fact that, we have managed to, dare I say, make this kind of fun. It's been fun for me. That speaks to a good group, and you can't have a good group if there are bad eggs in that group. Everybody has been so wonderful, and your leadership's been great this year, Liz, and I love the perspective that Crystal brings to everything. So you'll be very much missed, and just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any ban on former planning boards members contacting the planning board. Like, there is a bit of a ban on city council. You have that year off, so to speak.
I think there is a restriction.
Yeah.
I learned that.
It's, you have a year that you can't
come up here.
testify. That's what it is on city council. Yeah.
Yeah, was it a year, John?
Yeah.
I remember talking to you about that.
I learned that in detail.
Well, I just learned something else, although I wasn't really planning on coming down here.
Well, you can still call me if you're planning to come in.
There you go.
You can go out for the drinks late at night with us. just come by around 11 or 12. We haven't been
Or
doing that.
1 or 2 or whatever.
We haven't been doing that.
Liz and I will have been at a happy hour earlier.
But
You'll be ready.
Yeah.
But I just remember when I got on planning board, just getting to know all the different personalities and everybody. And I remember the first conversations I had with both of you and all the things that you offered me in terms of experience and things that I needed to know. And I feel like you're really great mentors. And I will miss you both very much.
Thank you so much.
Just add my
Thank you.
thoughts to that.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close this up. All righty. We're adjourned.
You're here.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Live from Paris sur France 24.
Reporter and correspondent for Religion News Service from Dublin, author, activist, and survivor.